So I was taking a look at all of the build guides that I've come up with on this channel, and they're all inaccurate now. PC hardware prices have gotten so extreme that every single build guide that I've put together over the past year is completely false now. And that doesn't sit right with me. So today, we're gonna put together a $1,200 1440p gaming system that you can build right now in 2026, despite all the RAM and GPU and SSD problems. Now, when it comes to the deals that I was able to pick up for today's build, besides this item right here, all of this was picked up in a bundled deal from Newegg. Bundle deals like this one right here are a great way to reduce the amount of money that you're gonna have to spend on your PC if you're okay with not being able to pick each and every individual part that is gonna go inside your system, because you don't have any choice over what you're getting in that bundle. And I picked this one up on Newegg for $468, and for that money I got a 240mm AIO, I got a ASRock B650 Pro motherboard, I got a Ryzen 5 7600X, and 16 gigs of DDR5 memory. And I get it, 16 gigs of RAM may not be what you want, but this right here is like $200 out of the $468 I paid for this entire bundle. Plus, 16 gigs of RAM isn't that bad, and I'm gonna show you that a little later. Now, there is one more piece of our motherboard assembly that we do need to go over before I can go ahead and put this thing together, and that is this Orico 1TB SSD. Now, is this the fastest SSD? Absolutely not. Is it the cheapest SSD? Absolutely. Listen, 6 months ago, I could find a 1TB SSD for under $50, and now I can't find an SSD for under $100. And this thing right here came in at $119, which was the cheapest at the time. And with all of that, we can go ahead and put together our motherboard. So our motherboard assembly is looking real good, and it's ready to go inside the case. Now, I did leave the AMD stock CPU cooler mounts on here because I don't know what the mounting situation is for our AIO, so we're gonna worry about that a little bit later. But what I did wanna talk to you about is the case. So this right here is the Aqua 6 Infinity by Aqinos. Now, if you guys have been watching me for a little bit of time, you know that I really like Aqinos because they do a good job of keeping their price tags low while still offering an aesthetically pleasing PC case, because there's no reason why we can't have affordability and a good look. Now, I really like this case because it gives you that aquarium design that is very popular right now. It also gives you a lot of dust filtration, which is exactly what you want from a PC because you don't want it to get dirty. You have a full perforation down here at the bottom so you can get maximum airflow up into your kit chassis, and you have 3 included Infinity fans. You have 2 reverse blade Infinity fans right here and 1 exhaust fan for the back. And for just a $65 price tag, this was actually like a no-brainer when it came to this build, because not only do I want the PC to be affordable, also want it to look really good. So let's go ahead and get this back panel off so that I can put our motherboard inside of this case. Now, before I proceed, I definitely wanted to comment on the fact that there is an MATX board here, and this is an ATX case. And a lot of people really don't like this gap here. They find it annoying that the motherboard doesn't fill the entire case. And if that's you don't like this look, then go ahead and pick a different case. You can get an MATX case for similar price tags. I just went with an ATX case because I wanted room to grow. This is obviously me entering PC level, so $1,200 is kind of the entry level into, AM5 gaming PCs, which is sad to say, but regardless, this is kind of an entry-level PC. So an entry-level PC should grow with you, and I feel like if you're going to upgrade in the future, maybe you want an ATX board, make sure you have a case that you don't have to replace later on. Now, when it comes to cheaper gaming PCs, which is sad to say, because I don't think that $1,200 is cheap by any means, but for right now, that is kind of the case. You do have to be kind of selective on which power supply you're going to be using. Now, for me, I have used a lot of budget power supplies, and I've actually had no issues issues with them. I've actually run into more issues with expensive power supplies than I have with cheaper ones. But when it does come to like a more affordable power supply, these Rosewill power supplies have been a game changer. They've been nothing but reliable. I really like these. So if you're gonna pick anything that is budget friendly when it comes to a power supply, this is definitely one that I would consider. I think this might be the 6th or 7th one that I've used, and I have been nothing but happy with them. Now this is semi-modular, plus I really like that there is no labeling on this side. Since the bottom panel of our case here is mesh, you would be able to see through it. And the last thing I really want to see is this writing right here. So with not having any on this side, it's going to be really, really nice. You're not even going to notice that it's there. I gotta say, I think she's coming together pretty well. But do me a favor, while I get this AIO out of the box, if you are having a little bit of fun here, I would love to keep coming up with these build guides for you. So if you could make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and you've hit that like button, that would be fantastic. It would mean the world to me, and I love making new friends. Now you guys have probably noticed already that this can house a 360mm AIO. So this is gonna look a little silly because it's not gonna fit in there perfectly, but I wasn't gonna not use it because it came for free. So we're just gonna have to deal with it. Listen, I don't know if I just misplaced the instructions or this AIO didn't come with them, but I can't find instructions anywhere. So we're just gonna figure this out. This thing's gonna look weird. So part of me was thinking that this would be where I would place the AIO on this back wall here, but with the fans and the radiator in the future, if I wanted to put a bigger card in here, I wouldn't have the ability to. So I think the best bet is to mount it up top here, so that way I always have clearance for the GPU, plus I have the intake fans on the back wall and more ARGB. It's never bad to have more color, I guess. Let's go ahead and get this mounted on. So we are pretty much finished with this build. All we need to do is add in our graphics card and then see the performance from our system. But before I do that, I do want to go ahead and add in 3 more fans. This only costs me $20, and it's gonna do a great job of not only adding in extra cooling to our system, but it's going to fill in this bottom section here. Now we used an MATX board in an ATX case, which leaves this big gap down here, and I did want to fill that in just a little bit, and the best way to do it is with fans. We'll add 3 down here at the bottom. It'll improve cooling, and it'll give us a much better look for the entire build. So now for the most critical decision of every single gaming PC, that is the graphics card. Now there were a few different options, and they were all gonna kind of change the budget quite a bit. The B580 was something that I was considering. That's a 12 gig card, and that would have been all right, coming in at around $300. So it would have saved a little bit of money, and we still had a great performing card. But for a little bit more money, I was able to pick up the 16 gig RX 9060 XT. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think that there is another option out there if you're looking for a $1,200 gaming PC and you're looking to get as much performance out of it as possible. This card right here is going to be able to give us great performance at 1440p, and that is exactly where we want to be for a build at this price. Now there is an 8 gig variant of this exact same card, which comes in at a little bit cheaper, but I definitely do not recommend getting the 8 gig version, even though you would be saving a little bit of money that you could use maybe somewhere else in this build. The 16 gig is definitely where you want to be, and it comes in at $468, which is how much I paid for this card right here, which is not a bad price for a card that performs this well. So let's go ahead, get that graphics card in here, fire this thing on for the first time, and let's see how well it performs. dead honest, this thing definitely looks a whole lot better than I thought it was gonna be. And if this is what we're gonna be considering budget these days, then I'm gonna say that this is an extremely good looking PC for a budget system. Now, the total cost to put this system together actually came in under $1,200 at $1,186. So that does give you a little bit of wiggle room if your budget is $1,200 and you plan on spending every single cent. But there are some things that you could change for this build to kind of make it your own. Now, what you could do is you could remove the 9060 XT and you could go for a B580. Those come in at around $300, and that would give you enough money to get 32 gigs of RAM if RAM is really something that you definitely need. But for me personally, with this system, since we're building a strong gaming PC that's going to perform well at 1440p, I stuck with the 16 gigs of RAM and went for the 9060 XT because we're going to get much stronger gameplay from this graphics card than we are from the B580. Now, a lot of times I hear the argument that I spent too much money on the case and aesthetics, so less RGB, I had to save more money, and I could use those funds to get more performance elsewhere. And that really doesn't apply here all that much because the RGB from the RAM and the AIO came from a bundle deal. I didn't have any control over that, and the case was $65. This is a great case for $65, and it came with 3 RGB fans. I mean, you could maybe save $10 more and get a different case that sucks, but I would rather spend the 10 and get, you know, a nice case. And then I spent like $19 on these RGB fans. So all in all, I think if I were to try to save money on the case and the RGB fans, I'd probably saved maybe $30, and that's not enough to really increase anywhere else, except for maybe a stronger SSD. But our budget was under $1,200, and if you're planning on spending $1,200, you'd already have those funds built in to increase the, you know, the quality of your SSD regardless. But we should probably move on to the gameplay performance that you can expect from this PC right here. Now, I did test every single game at 1440p and at every single game's max preset. And I do show the RAM usage from this system for anyone who is still unconvinced that 16 gigs of RAM is still okay for the majority of scenarios. And in Arc Raiders, which is probably the game that you would want to buy the PC for anyways because it is so fun, we're getting an average of 98 FPS with 1% lows at 66 and an average of 13 gigs of RAM usage. In Battlefield 6, we're getting much better performance than I thought we were going to see, with an average of 78 FPS, 1% lows at 60, and again, only 13 gigs of RAM usage on average. In God of War Ragnarok, which is a game I always love diving back into, we're seeing an average FPS of 89, 1% lows at 67, and only 12 gigs of RAM usage on average. And lastly, I played Helldivers because it's been quite some time since I dropped in for a dive, and we're getting an average of 81 FPS with 1% lows at 73 and 12 gigs of memory usage on average. So one thing that I really love about this build in particular is that even with the hardware price issues that we're having right now, $1,200 has kind of been the norm when it comes to a 1440p capable gaming system. It may be a little bit on the high end, and it's definitely on the high end if you planned on using any used parts, which is something that I like to do a lot of times. But if you want a brand new 1440p capable system, $1,200 isn't the worst price there is. Plus, this particular build is easy to upgrade. You want a stronger CPU? You can throw one in here. You want more RAM? Throw more RAM in here. You want a bigger SSD? Throw another SSD in here. You can do easy upgrades with this. If you were to spend maybe $750 on an AM4 platform system with DDR4 memory, you're not getting much. You're getting a Ryzen 5 5500, you're getting DDR4 memory, which there's nothing wrong with DDR4 memory or the AM4 platform. They're great platforms, great memory, but those are much harder to upgrade. You're gonna spend $750 on a system that's not all that strong just so that you can go ahead and spend another $350 to $400 to throw in a new motherboard, CPU, and RAM in the future. I think it just makes way more sense to spend the $1,200 to get a PC like this rather than go backwards and get something from the last generation. Now, just like always, I'm gonna leave links to all of this hardware in the description down below for you to check out if you're interested, but please go to places like Newegg, or if you're close to a Micro Center, go see about bundle deals. Newegg Newegg's bundle deals change all the time, and you may be able to get better deal and get this exact same build or the same performance that this build gets for a little bit less, depending on what bundle deals they've got going on at that time. If you did have a little bit of fun here with me, please consider hitting the subscribe button and smashing that like button. It helps me out tremendously. And because you've made it all the way to the end of the video, as an added bonus, if you hit this video right here, it'll show you how you might have the opportunity to win a brand new gaming PC for exactly $0. I'll see you in the next video, guys.